There's forgotten places where only the wind through rugged canyons, among lofty peaks, and over arid plains, tells the tales of days long past. Apache country, where few white men venture and fewer ever return. The Chizos Mountains of Big Bend country is such a place. Few things would take a man deep into Indian country, especially now, since the treaty was broken and the war lands meant death to all intruders. Silver, that was the thing that'd make men forget danger. For a while, anyways, till it was too late to turn back. Weren't till I'd put a full day's travel from the last warning marker that I stopped. Somehow I'd made it. And I'd struck it rich. Darn near a mountain of silver. Has to be the biggest strike in West Texas. Soon as things get peaceful again, I'll be living in the Danged if they didn't have me in their sights all along. Just waiting till I was fur enough out of them mountains so's no one would know where I'd been or pick up my tracks back to the mine. The Chizos Mountains are legendary for their strange happenings. The Apache calls them the Wizard Mountains, or Mountains of the Ghost. Men who die violently beneath their peaks are doomed to roam this country till their spirit finds peace. Now old Sal and me must haunt these hills till one of my kin discovers the true meaning of the riches buried here in the silent past. Nigh on to 90 years has passed. 90 years of waiting and watching, hoping my grandson would have my love for the Old West. But he never did, nor did his son. The fact is, 3 generations of Moffats passed, till Jamie here. Now at last there's a Moffat with a kind of spirit needed to rediscover the Old West. Seems specially interested in West Texas, Big Bend country, and stories of his old ancestor, Sundown Sam. Dan and Sandy are planning a western vacation, and Jamie's been trying to change their minds to a southwestern trip. To be exact, Big Bend. And that's why I'm here. The boy's wishing and hoping so hard, I figure he deserves all the help I can give him. Being they can't see or hear me, there's not much I can do, except maybe drop a few hints, to sort of get him thinking the boy's way. Now, that old book on ghost towns of the West is plumb full of stories about West Texas. And Jamie's folks always been sort of interested in family history. The way that boy's a-talking and pleading, I get the feeling that old Sal and me is gonna have some visitors down our way real soon. I knew the young'un could handle the task. Fact is, when I saw all the clothes and things they were putting in that modern, sturdy-looking covered wagon they called a motor home, danged if I know how a home could have a motor. Anyways, the way they packed that gear in, I figured maybe Jamie'd talked him into moving to West Texas. Then there was them iron burros with saddles. Maybe city folk don't know about live ones like old Sal. Of course, there were things I'd be learning about some of this newfangled gear they were taking. One thing for sure, they were as excited as a bunch of greenhorn prospectors looking for their first strike. Well, the first big surprise was how much territory we covered in that home with a motor. Why, it traveled better than 500 miles the first day. I figured at least 10 days to 2 weeks before we'd hit Alpine and the first real look at my part of the Big Bend country. Before I got my wits about me, we was passing a sign that said Big Bend National Park. And I could tell by the surrounding terrain we was mighty close to my old stomping grounds. In the 1930s and 40s, the people of Texas took the necessary steps to make all this country a national park. Now it's protected. I know that makes a heap of old-timers, including myself, mighty happy. There's a real beauty here that needs to be preserved, beginning with the many wild critters that roam this country. It's a rare sight that young'uns like Jamie ought to get a chance to see. It must have took old Mother Nature hundreds of years to create this rugged landscape. And after seeing it once, you can understand why men stand in awe of such beauty, or seek to protect this kind of place. We was entering what I considered the most eye-appealing part in Big Bend country, the Santa Elena Canyon area. It was my love for this spot that led to the finding of my silver strike, and also got me the nickname Sundown Sam. I was sure glad to see they decided to stop a while and take a look around. Jamie wanted to take them iron mules they called mini-cycles, till Dan told him this was a hiking trail, and it was against the park rules. It was a hiking trail, all right. Lord knows how many times I've walked this way, and climbed up to the ridge to watch the sun go down. Fact is, I do most of my prospecting in this area, so as I could be near the ridge. That's how I discovered one of the biggest silver strikes in this country, and got the nickname Sundown. Turned if this new generation ain't full of surprises. About the time I figured they'd be bedding down for the night, they just turned on some eyes for that motorhome and took off in the dark. And then, to top it all off, Sandy started making up a bunk for her and Jamie, while Stan took us south, slicking the whistle. In my day, about the only time a man did any night riding was when the law was on his trail, and there sure weren't no way to do any relaxing. It was Sandy's reading to the boy at bedtime that developed his love for the Old West, and it weren't hard to see that her and Dan enjoyed it almost as much as the boy. Finally, somebody decided to get a little shut-eye. Jamie and his folks were kind of surprised to see such a colorful stand of trees around here. Most folks don't expect this kind of fall beauty in such rough country. Dan was a firm believer in starting Jamie out right concerning firearms. Too many young'uns get in trouble because they ain't taught sensible rules when it comes to shooting. I was proud to see the boy getting his first lesson here in this country, where I learnt mine. Now, the first rule Dan was teaching the boy was to find a safe place out in the open with a good high backstop. And make sure you use a sharp, clear target. Each step was done with a slow, deliberate pace. And all the while, Dan was talking, telling the boy about the plastic cartridge box for protecting the bullets, how it kept them clean and lint-free so as they'd load easy, work free in the chamber, and help keep the barrel of the gun cleaner. And then, finally, each feature about the rifle was thoroughly explained. I was mighty pleased to see the boy paying such close attention. The name Deadeye was not an uncommon one in the Old West, but like most nicknames, it weren't given lightly. Most men that carried it was crack shots. It sure fit Dan when it came to sharp shooting. Darned if it weren't almost as good as I could have done. It was a real pleasant surprise the way Jamie handled that rifle on his first lesson, even though it was a mite big for him. Why, with a little practice, he'd be as good a shot as Dan. Maybe even me. Now, I've sat around many a morning campfire, had some mighty fine victuals. But one look at them cakes Sandy was serving almost made me sorry I was a ghost. Weren't nobody could ever say old Sundown didn't hold his own when it came chow time. By the size of that stack Sandy set before Jamie, there was no doubt the lad had a fair-size appetite himself. About 30 seconds after them mini-cycles were unloaded, I knew why city folk didn't know or care about burros like old Sal. They took to that trail easy as water running downhill, and there wasn't no way we were going to keep up with them. Tanked if it didn't look like fun. And safe, too. One thing for sure, made short work out of them rough backcountry trails. The trail led only one place, right above the very spot where my luck ran out. Used to be one of my favorite spots. Water so clear you could drink it right out of the falls. Take a bath in it to boot. Though it didn't look like Dan cotton to a surprise bath this time of day. I was glad the young'uns were enjoying themselves. It sort of brought back fond memories of this place. This was how nature's wilderness should be enjoyed, along with them times when quiet reflecting best expresses our feelings for such rare beauty. Just when I figured they were going to do some serious thinking about old Sundown, why, they were on the move again. Quicken you could say scat, they was gone, leaving me and Sal tagging along behind. Like I said before, though, these Jesus Mountains is full of strange happenings. Them mini-cycles took 'em straight to the old cottonwood tree, and there weren't a better spot to start hunting for clues about the silent past. Although I couldn't see how them white sticks with rings on 'em was going to help one little bit. Well, darned if that thing they call a metal detector didn't start singing like a canary. Well, before I could figure it out, the three of them were on their knees digging for something buried beneath the ground. All the while, Dan's explaining how that detecting thing works. It seems like the big ring is for covering large areas and deeper findings, while the little one's for pinpointing items near the surface and looking for littler things. Well, it all sounded a little far-fetched to me. Anyhow, that old sluice box was darn near uncovered by wind and water. Now, what they need is a sharp-nosed prospector like me who can smell buried treasure. Why, I remember... Oh, by golly, there it goes again. Look, they found an old coffee brewer. Maybe these young'uns do have something. Of course, they still haven't found anything of mine, and this old riverbed's bound to be the resting place for countless old relics like them ones they've been finding. Why, that's my old canteen. I was just filling it with water near the falls when... And that's my gold pan Sandy's dug up. Well, I'll be. Them metal detecting machines must have a pretty sharp nose themselves. Most of these things was washed down by the spring floods. When the snow melts off in the mountains, these rivers go on the rampage for days, and anything gets in their way is carried on downstream till it's finally buried. That's what must have happened to all my gear after I was shot upriver a ways. Now Jamie and his folks are finding them. If I could only tell them the stories surrounding some of those old things. It truly would be a tale from the silent past. What's that Sandy's found? It's my old tin box, where I kept all of my personal things. There's a picture of my pa. And that's me when I was a young man. There's the pipe I never fixed. And the key to my old traveling trunk. Plus some of the things a man naturally collects over the years. Then Sandy found the letter I'd written to old Hard Rock's kin. Hard Rock Pepper. I hadn't thought about my old partner for years. Me and old Hard Rock came to the Chizos together. And after months of searching, we'd struck her big. Silver! We was rich. Even old Sal joined the celebration. But, like I said, the Chizos is full of strange happenings. We'd been working the mine for 2 months when old Hard Rock asked me if I'd write his kin if anything happened to him. And it happened. Don't ask me how old Hard Rock knew something was waiting for him. When a man spends his life living with danger and relying on his senses, it's just something he knows. That's all. It's a feeling. I've seen a lot of things die in this country, even men. But old Hard Rock's passing was a hard blow. We'd been friends for a long time. I buried him on a hill overlooking Santa Elena Canyon. Now Jamie and his folks were caught up in this tragedy from the past, in the final days of Hard Rock Pepper and their ancestor, old Sundown Sam. The letter was addressed to Hard Rock Pepper's kinfolk at care of the general store at Terlingua. The way that motor home was eating up the miles, it weren't no surprise to me we was turning into Terlingua before I could gather my wits about me. A few quick inquiries and we were pulling up before the ranch of Glen Pepper. Glen is Hard Rock's great-great-nephew and a mighty fine prospector in his own right. Of course, prospecting today is a lot different than it was when old Hard Rock and me used to roam these mountains. Maps and something Glenn calls geological research. It means the study of rocks and formations. Anyway, all of these things is supposed to tell a fella where to start looking. Sort of like them metal detectors that Dan and Sandy uses. It makes finding things a whole lot easier. Glenn had some of the oldest, most complete maps of anybody in the area. And he quickly showed Dan and Sandy how to reach the entrance of the mine that was first discovered by old Hard Rock and me. Now, the first stop on the way was the old ruins of Terlingua. Once a thriving town during the silver boom of the 1890s. Now it's a ghost town, filled with silent memories. Its bleached white adobe bricks like the bones of a long-forgotten skeleton in the Texas sun. I'd learned my lesson about them mini-cycles, and since I knew this country better than any map, it weren't hard to keep pace with them this time. Seeing how I'd been over these ruins hundreds of times, it gave me a chance for a little nap while they was exploring. It was a little nap, too. Derned if I'd barely blinked twice and they were over the hill, headed for the mine. But I guess I'm slowing down in my old age. Of course, being better than 150 years old, guess a feller should take it a mite easy. Anyhow, Just no way that I'm gonna keep up with them young'uns the way they move. Sure no place they can go in that mine where I can't find 'em, even if it has changed a lot since old Hard Rock and me dug that first tunnel. The mine was rediscovered only a few short years after my death and became part of the big silver boom. Later, cinnabar, the rock that holds mercury, was found, and the mine became even bigger. It riled me a little to think that others were working the mine that Hard Rock and me gave our lives for, and every once in a while I'd drift in and hide one of the picks or take some personal item while they was sleeping. Yeah, finally the mine was worked out and abandoned and left for the wild critters that hunt during the night. I guess I should have known city folk would be scared of bats. Yeah, of course, a man has to live amongst wild critters for a spell, for he knows if they're dangerous. And it don't hurt a person to be careful. Strange surroundings. Jamie shows real signs of being a prospector. Why, most young'uns would have picked up just any old rock, but the boy had an eye for the special ones. And Sandy showed know-how, too. That much cinnabar would be worth about $25. One of the things that Jamie and his folks learned from Glenn Pepper's study of formations was that only the faults, the big caves running east and west, had any mineral deposits. The ones running north and south didn't have a thing. Something about how they was formed, or so he says. But like I've said, the Chizos Mountains is full of strange happenings. I'd seen them metal detectors doing their stuff on the old riverbed, so I'm keeping my mouth shut. But I can't for the life, ghost to me, see what Dan expects to find in here. Well, doggone if he ain't found an old case of someone's pocket watch. That used to be one of the favorite things I'd take from them sleeping miners. A good prospector can tell the time of day just by looking at the sun. Looks like Sandy's gonna try her luck. Well, I guess it ain't luck. Dan says them things can find gold or silver. Sure would have made old Hard Rocks and my searching a whole lot easier. Wonder what Sandy's found. Oh, by golly, it's an old pick. I wonder. I guess there's folks that wouldn't consider these things as treasures or spend the time searching for them. But they're the ones who fail to see the true riches in this kind of discovering. Most men who spend a lifetime searching for gold or silver are not driven by greed. Fact is, I knew a lot who struck it rich and then gave their wealth away so they could go prospecting again. It's a combination of a lot of things. Freedom, sleeping under the stars where the air is fresh, the water pure, and the scenery so spectacular that most men find it hard to describe. Oh, it's a rough life. And even with today's modern conveniences, it takes teamwork and perseverance. But that's another part of the reward in this kind of prospecting. Sharing, doing things together, and discovering new horizons filled with the knowledge that it was your personal effort and searching that helped you reach your final goal. Dan and Sandy and Jamie have come a long way in an awful short time. Discovered a lot of interesting and exciting things in the search for the true story about old Sundown. But more important, they've added new wealth to their personal lives just by visiting these Chizos Mountains and this Big Bend country. Especially Jamie. That young'un has the love of the Old West in his heart, and and his young mind is just beginning to explore the wonders and mysteries of living. To him and all the other young'uns like him belong the riches of this land. For a moment, I felt as though the boy understood what old Sundown was trying to protect for him. And in that second, our spirits touched. As they left, I knew they'd be back again. And in the years ahead, Jamie'd come to discover the full value of the real treasures here in the Big Bend country. That, like old Sundown Sam, he'd come to know that there's things far more valuable than gold or silver. And he'd find all the answers a man would ever need, buried here in the silent past.
There's treasure waiting to be found in these hills. Outlaw treasure. This story tells how 4 men looked for a fortune in gold coins buried by outlaws more than a century ago. Roy Lagle, Charles Garrett, Monty Moncrief, and Bill Fullerton sought this treasure with modern metal detectors. First of all, they used proper research techniques to check out the story of the robbery and verify their knowledge. Then, they used the same tools available to any hobbyist. These 4 men were looking for a shipment of gold coins stolen in 1880 and hidden in the hills of central Idaho. Miles from any roads, this area was once accessible only by horseback. But a newly created lake makes the treasure site just a boat ride away. Let's join the men now on their boat ride to adventure and follow them as they go tracking outlaw treasure.
The old trail comes down. This is where it came down, right in here. Now you can see the old trail. It used to go right up over there. See it?
As the treasure hunters prepare for the long hike into the mountains, they listen while Roy describes their goal.
Carl, that's the old Outlaw trail right there that they went up between here and the top, and that bunch that robbed the stage that time, they got caught up on top there, and they didn't have the money with them, and we've always thought the money was right back over here because they had to get rid of it. So what we'll do, we'll go right up here, crawl over that old fence there, and then try to cut right up over that hill, get up there on that first level up there, and then start working that rock, because the rock is the only place they could have buried it that quick. You see those rock over there? Charles and I worked all along there the last 2 years, so we know the money isn't there. So that's the reason why we're almost positive that it's on this right-hand side. And this year, if we work the right-hand side, I think we've got a real good chance to find it. It can't be anywhere else because they killed them right up there at the top. and they didn't have the money then in the robbery, and it's pretty good heavy size, you know, really. And so if we head on up this way up here, why, let's go hunt.
Treasure hunting is seldom easy. It can require journeys to distant places and strenuous foot travel, as our adventurers discover. But then, if buried treasure were easy to find, there soon wouldn't be any left. Long before our treasure hunters began following this outlaw trail on their quest for a hidden hoard of golden coins, they conducted extensive research. Let's listen to Charles Garrett describe it.
Well, of course, in 1880, the face value, the coins was $80,000. And the weight, the mass the size would have been about right for saddlebags for several outlaw. But now today, the increase in gold value, of course, makes the coins worth considerably more. What was that we figured last year? Well, we figured at spot 400.
Yeah, we figured the spot at 400. We figured that out one time, spot at 401 ounce to the coin. Came out to $1,600,000. And I believe they're a little higher this year. So even if a guy melted them down, it's quite a little bit of money.
Were they all 20s?
Well, there's no way. When we done the research on the old cavalry records, that was when, you know, it was back about 20 years ago when we first got interested. I'd say, as near as we could deduct, that it was a shipment, and they would have all been 20s. Of course, the robbery after that happened, you got it. Well, there was 5 outlaws in the bunch, and when they had the money in coming through here, and they know they had the money because the robbery happened not too far from here, and then they went up on the trail, and they got word in a roundabout way through another area over here. And a posse was already after somebody else, and they accidentally just ran into them up here at the top of the trail out on the flat, and they got into a gun battle, and they killed them all. Well, of course, they didn't have the money. So everybody became treasure hunters, according to the old stories. You know, they just combed these hills. They knew they buried them in rocks, see, because that's the only way you could bury during that particular time. There's no digging around here. So the posse, they broke up into small groups and got greedy, and they went around and dug. And
the posse probably turned outlaw too, looking for that much money.
Charles and I found back over there on the other side. We spent 2 years over there, and we found holes where they had dug, but they were wrong, because Charles and I checked all that with metal detectors, and there was nothing. And so that's why we want to work this side over in here now, because we know it isn't over there, because we worked every available. In 2 years we found all the available rock slides there was.
How long do you think it'll take us to get to the top? About another hour?
I hope not any longer than that, man. I'll tell you, it's hot. About 105 here now.
Well, I think this lunch break has stretched long enough. I think it's time to go get it.
Okay.
It's got a good chance of being up there.
Well, we know it wasn't over there anyway. So it has to be over here on this side, and that sure looks like a good spot.
Right.
They had to put it somewhere.
Let's go see if we can find Charles and Roy.
Yeah, they probably found it, dug it up, and headed for home.
Yeah, I bet we can't even find them. Hey, there's Charles and Roy up there. Let's go meet them.
Let's head right on up that.
You're right, Roy. I believe this is the place.
Well, Charles, one thing, it sure could be. That rock, see that large hole right there?
Yeah?
You can see that the moss, none of that stuff's been disturbed. And I would say probably about 100 years ago, posse came back over here. Hey, Bill, Monty, take a look at that. See those holes there? That's just like them holes over there where the posse was digging on the other side. And, this is back off the path, and actually, I would say probably that is a much better prospect than it was back over there. And it's the best place we've seen. And I think we ought to take our detectors and take a closer look at it. Because it's definitely been dug 100 years ago, and it's just been dug haphazard. And it very easily could be right there.
Let's go take a look.
Okay, I'm ready.
This treasure hunting expedition was obviously not undertaken on the spur of the moment. Did you hear Roy talk about research 20 years ago? And did you hear him mention the work he and Charles had done in previous years? Yes, hunting successfully for large treasures requires careful research and planning.
This hole here, see the moss on here, how heavy it is, and the desert varnish is back there. Possibly these rocks here had to have been moved, definitely, say 75 to 100 years ago. So the posse undoubtedly must have had the same idea that we got today. They came over here, see down there, there's some more throwing rocks around. Of course, there's one good thing about it, they didn't have a metal detector, so they didn't know where to dig, they just threw a few rocks. I really believe that we might have something here. It's a good possibility of the money being right here.
Well, it's obvious with the moss like it is, it took a long time for it to grow. Nobody's been here, and they did a lot of work. They were looking for something.
Well, there was nobody here back 75, 100 years ago other than the posse and the Outlaw, so.
Yeah, this hole, and that one, and that one.
You can definitely see they were sure dug.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But what he was saying, that it's been, because of the moss growing, it's been so far back, they probably didn't have detectors, and I could believe it was the posse. Let's get the detectors, go to work.
Okay, I'm ready.
Now, Charles begins a methodical search of the area with his Master Hunter metal detector. To maximize the chances for success, our treasure hunters have carefully chosen the equipment they use. They've selected deep-seeking detectors with circuitry that ignores minerals in the earth. The right type of equipment is an absolute must, no matter what treasure you are seeking.
Good one, Roy.
Yeah, man, that sounds like it ought to sound. Hey.
Roy, I feel it. This is it. Let's dig it up.
Well, old friend, we worked hard on this for 3 years. Let's hope it's there. It can't be junk, we know that.
Right. Let's do it.
I'm ready.
Now it's time for more hard work as the men dig to find the source of their detector signal. As Roy said, they know it can't be metal junk, for these lonely and beautiful hills have never been home to a civilization that would bring junk with it. See how glamorous treasure hunting can be? Watch out there. You can break a leg if those rocks start sliding on you. Let's see how close we're getting to our target. Sounds pretty close, which means it's time for more digging. Perhaps the final effort.
Charles, you know that over 100 years that thing's bound to have filled in, say, a foot and a half there. That rain and everything, don't you think?
Oh yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, I'd say a foot and a half.
Yeah, and there's been some more rock coming down from the higher elevation.
I imagine probably they only buried it probably a couple of foot deep, and I would guess that it's going to be around 3.5 foot, whatever it is.
Yeah, we're getting on down pretty deep right now.
Yeah.
Bill, look. Yeah, I see it. Roy, honey.
Look at that, would you?
There you have the formula for a real treasure hunt. A great deal of research and a lot of hard work. What did we find? Was the treasure hunt a success? Of course it was. I agree with Garrett, the hero of these two novels. Gar says that every treasure hunt is a genuine pleasure if nobody gets hurt or spends money he or she cannot afford. Since none of us got hurt and we could afford what it cost us, this treasure hunt was a real success. I know I enjoyed it. Modern metal detectors such as the Grand Master make it possible for any of you to enjoy treasure hunting like you've just seen. You'll get the same thrill out of it that we did. Remember, do your research in advance and be ready for lots of hard work, but it can all pay off. Good luck, and I'll see you in the field.